Well, that's a little bit about me. My name is Elizabeth Pehota. If you guys want to follow me on social media and see more of my journey, I'm at healthy_cheers or my last name at Pehota. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I'm somebody who's been directly impacted by MS, and seeing that we've already raised over $400,000 to try to find a cure for this disease, I just want to give you all a round of applause because you're making such a big difference. And I also wanted to see, can you put your hand up if you have MS in this room? All right, let's give a round of applause for all of these incredible people who are here with MS. And you guys are not alone. I know from having MS that sometimes it can feel like you're by yourself when you're dealing with this, but tonight is a great reminder of the people that come together to do good in this world. So when you're having a bad day, a flare-up, or just something going on, I want you to think back to this dinner. So my story is that I started running in 2020. I was trying to run the Boston Marathon. I went to school in Boston College, and I grew up just kind of seeing everybody on mile 21 of the marathon. I was inspired. I didn't have MS at the time, but I wanted to run a marathon one day. And I set out to do that in 2020. I fundraised $10,000. Unfortunately, it was not for the MS Society at that time. I had not started my journey yet. And the race got canceled. I fundraised, I didn't get to run it. I ran it virtually in my backyard, and I didn't get to run Boston. And I thought to myself, I still want to get there one day. So I set out on chasing a dream. I actually ran the Chicago Marathon in 2021, so four years ago, if my math is correct. And it was an 83-degree day. It was so hot. And unfortunately, I didn't meet the standard of a BQ, which was 3:30 at the time. I ran a marathon 3 weeks later, and I actually met a BQ. And in 2022, this is a very short version. I can give you the full version later on. I ran Boston, and that was finally completing my dream. But after I raced Boston, everything started to change that summer of 2022. My husband, Matt, who is my incredible cameraman over there and caretaker, we decided to run the Berlin Marathon. And so we started to train throughout the summer, and I just noticed that my body was really off. I have a background, I was actually formerly a professional cheerleader for the Boston Celtics. I worked full-time on top of that, but that was my party trick. And I had really good balance, and I just noticed my body changing throughout the summer. My feet and my hands, they were starting to tingle, and everyone in my life just kind of said, oh, you're running a lot, you're training for a marathon, nothing's wrong, you're okay, you're just running a lot. And throughout that summer, those symptoms just kind of progressed, and I started to feel the pins and needles. It basically feels like you have that pins and needles feeling, the numbness. And it started to creep from my foot to my ankle to my calf to my knee and eventually into my thighs. And it got to a point where I really felt like I was walking and running with so much resistance, like I was moving in water. And by the end of the summer, I said, you know what? I need to go see my doctor. People are telling me this is normal, and I've never seen my body do this. This is not normal. It's not painful, but it's extremely uncomfortable. And so I went to go see I didn't have a neurologist yet, what am I saying? I went to go see my primary care. They were wonderful. They got me some ultrasounds right away. And they told me, Elizabeth, we think you need to go see a neurologist. We're gonna do everything we can today so that we can get you in there as quickly as possible, but you need to call as soon as possible to set up that appointment. This was September of 2022, and my appointment was for December 2022. And as you guys know, with MS, a timeline does matter, and it can take a while to get diagnosed. I called every day from my doctor's appointment to try to get a cancellation for neurology. And I'm very lucky. I live in Boston and very close to MGH, the hospital, where I could go over very quickly if someone did cancel and couldn't get into the city. I met with my neurologist. I, to the naked eye, am a healthy young woman that is already a marathon runner. And a lot of people might not have thought that anything was wrong with me because you don't look it when you see me. But he noticed I had one reflex off. I believe it was my left elbow, and he sent me to get some MRIs. I'll never forget that day that I got the phone call with my diagnosis. Hearing the words that you have MS and that there's no cure, it's something that is really daunting, and you can't shake that. It was a tough conversation. He told me, you're gonna find out a lot more about this. We're gonna meet, we're gonna chat, but do you have any questions for me now? And I knew nothing about MS at the time. I had never heard of it. And the one question I asked is, can I have kids? Can I have children one day? And luckily he said yes, and I'm sure a lot of you with MS have families, and that's wonderful, and I'm very happy that hopefully I'll be able to do that one day. But I had to go downstairs and tell my boyfriend, who's now my husband, at the time we'd been together for 10 years, telling someone you love you have MS is really, really difficult too. I didn't know if he was still gonna wanna be with me. I mean, we'd spent 10 years together. I had to call my parents after and tell them, and my siblings, my grandma, and none of those conversations are easy because, you know, my parents immediately on the phone were like, we want to take this from you. And I was like, I'm glad it's me and not you. I'm strong, I can handle this. And I didn't know when I said those words what that would really entail. So I went and met with my neurologist, and I'm sure a lot of you have been down that road, but it's very daunting. I had my mom come with me to the appointment. I really couldn't think left from right. It's very overwhelming when you're learning about it. And at the time, I was actually set to run the Berlin Marathon in 4 days. So I was supposed to be going to Germany and racing, and I had no idea that this diagnosis was going to happen. I thought maybe, I don't know, they thought I had Lyme disease at first or something along those lines. And my doctor actually gave me the okay after seeing me and talking with my mom about going to Berlin. And he basically told me, you've trained through all these symptoms. With insurance, we're not going to be able to get you the medication. We really need to treat this for a little bit. He told me, like, we can treat you orally on steroids for the time being. And if you want to go to Berlin and run, I'm comfortable with you doing that, especially with your husband with you. So I was very thankful that we were racing together. And that weekend was such a blur. I was going to the airport. I was in Berlin. I was taking 25 pills of prednisone a day. I remember the pharmacist called and asked me if there was an error when they saw the 0 on the end of it. But Berlin was the hardest race I've ever done in my life, and probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was trugging for 26.2 miles, and if I look back on the footage from that day, I hear my foot every single step just digging into the ground because I couldn't lift my feet high enough. And it was a big struggle to get through, and I honestly didn't know if I was going to finish that marathon. And I was very thankful to my husband who was running with me, who encouraged me, who was helping me get water and helping me really survive that day. But I didn't know that day was also going to change my life because it inspired hope in me. And I think if I had not run that race and I had just said no to my doctor, I didn't want to, I really think I'd be living a different life because I probably would have taken MS as a sentence, to be sedentary, to be someone who's living in safety and in fear. And instead, running this race, it empowered me, and it really made me come to the decision that I want to live chasing hope, and I want to make a difference, and I want to be able to move my body in a different way. And so I lived with MS behind closed doors for almost 2 years. I was, working full time. I was trying to figure out what it looked like to be able to function as a human with MS. And some of my symptoms, there's the numbness and the tingling. There's, I'll just call a spade and tell you guys them because you probably know them. You have the fatigue, you have the brain fog, you have the bowel issues. There's so many other ones, and I look back on some things that I was struggling with, issues with my eyes, and I didn't know that was maybe an early sign of MS symptoms. And every day is just so different. We have plans sometimes, and we can't always accomplish those plans. We have to change them and pivot. And I was actually set to run Boston the following year, and I contacted Shannon and I begged her via email, she did not know me, to be on the MS team. I had my own bib, but I wanted to meet other people with MS or who had a connection to it because I felt so alone. So what you guys are doing for the MS Society, it really does make a difference, and having you guys all here today, it continues to make a difference. And I'm proud to say that since that day that I ran Berlin and the day that I was diagnosed, I'm not perfect, and I'm still learning how to live with it every day, but I've been able to accomplish some pretty incredible things. I'm a 15-time marathoner, and 12 of those have been with my MS diagnosis. Thank you. So I'm very proud of that, and I've actually been able to get faster with MS and really devoting myself to running and teaching myself to run with proper form. And I've run all 7 world majors, and recently in February, I was running the Tokyo Marathon, and I decided that was the right time to share my story. I'm sure some of you guys know MS Awareness Month is March, and I really wanted to share ahead of going into March when the Tokyo Marathon was, that I had MS and the struggles I had been dealing with behind closed doors. I think one of the biggest things that I was having trouble coming to terms with is once you put it out there, it's out there. And I didn't want anyone to discriminate against me for having MS or think of me differently. And I know a lot of people who have chronic illnesses or MS also have that same struggle. You know, they want to put on a brave face and they don't want to be open with what they're going through because it brings up a lot of feelings and it can be hard for them, but also you don't want people to think differently of you. You want to be that same person you've always been before you were diagnosed. And what happened when I shared my story was I was met with incredible positivity and support from my online community, with Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the platforms, and from the people in my life, and even just people that were acquaintances or I went to school with who I hadn't talked to in years. And I think there is a lot of power in owning your narrative and your story, even if you're scared to. So that's something that really, I was not expecting to come out of sharing my diagnosis, but I wanted to help inspire other people who are going through adversity, maybe have a different invisible disease, because that's the thing, you never know anything's wrong, and other chronic illnesses as well as MS. So it's been a big picture to get here. I earned my 7th star in Sydney in August also as well. And I believe I'm the first person with MS to have finished all 7, which is a feat that I'm very proud of. But there's been a lot of struggles behind closed doors. Like I have days where, you know, I'm on the couch, I just have a lot of fatigue and I can't move. I have bowel struggles that I'm not gonna, you know, tell you guys at dinner, but I'm sure some of you guys have been there too if you're a runner or have MS. The brain fog can be sometimes really challenging when you're working or you're trying to come up with something, or maybe you have an obligation that you wanna go to, but you just don't have the strength. And I found that with sharing my story, it's been able to allow me to be a lot more honest with other people and myself and not feel as guilty for, you know, needing to prioritize my health. Because I do think when you have MS or someone in your life with MS, there's a lot of strength in giving yourself and those around you grace. Because you never know what someone's going through behind closed doors. Treating people with kindness is always the answer. And after I started to share my story, my husband and I, we kind of got together, and I knew I wanted to make a difference and really do something for MS. And I have fundraised before for the MS Society, but we came up with this idea of breaking the world record for the fastest female with multiple sclerosis. And my whole goal with this has been to make some noise. So what I mean by that is not just raising money, but raising awareness, because I feel like a lot of people, when you mention MS to them, don't necessarily know what it is. Especially, I'm a millennial. I'm sure a little bit of older generations, maybe it's more common, but amongst my friends, like people, unless you work in healthcare, you really don't know what that is. So we wanted to, you know, flip that script. We wanted to make people aware of it, aware of chronic illnesses, invisible diseases, and everything that goes on. So I came up with this idea that why don't we do a play on multiple sclerosis and MS, and I titled it Project MS, which stands for Misconception Shattered. So there's a lot of things that people don't know, and I think it's really important to get all the correct information out there. But the whole point of this project is to shatter the world record and to really shatter some barriers around chronic illnesses and MS. Because people, you know, if you break your leg or you have some other disability, it can be very visible. And people know right away and say to themselves, okay, I have this visual cue that someone is struggling right now and I need to be aware. But when you look at somebody who has MS, you don't have that visual cue. You know, you think to yourself, you're gonna assume somebody's normal. And I think it's really important to educate people out there that people can be going through all this behind closed doors. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to break the world record on Sunday. It's going to be a pretty tremendous feat. We're going to get a lot of recognition for the MS Society and really trying to empower people to join this team, to fundraise for the cause, and spread awareness, I think, is the most important thing, to really be able to, you know, show this message to other people and empower them. The reason that I continue to run after my diagnosis is that it's such a feeling of empowerment when you cross the finish line. And I'm sure everybody here, put your hand up if you're running. All right, whose first marathon is it? Keep your hand up. All right, well, you guys will learn. Let's give a round of applause for you guys, first of all. You guys will learn this on Sunday, but when you cross the finish line, you are empowered. There are a lot of areas of your life where your relationship depends on another person. You know, if you're in a relationship, a marriage, you know, it takes 2 people to tango and for everybody to get along. Whether you're at work, you're probably working with a boss, and like in order to get promoted, you need to have the boss in tandem with you. In every area of your life, a friendship, there's always a second person tied to it. And what I love about running is that that is something that you do. You know, you put in the hours of training and you cross that finish line. And so that feeling of empowerment, really inspired a lot of this journey to want to help people and spread awareness about MS. And that's what I'm really excited to do here tonight with you guys, because it's been a long road for me and I've been battling a lot of challenges, and what you guys are doing here is so incredibly meaningful. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing, and it's a pleasure to share my story with you. I would love to connect on social media and be able to continue the conversation. Please come and find me later. It would mean the world to connect with you guys. I don't have a lot of people in my life who have MS or ties to it. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you guys are doing. Let's end with a round of applause for you guys.